Hi everyone, welcome to Business Connections. I'm your host, Carol Gable. Thanks for joining me, where every week I bring you business connectors. Normally there's one person with me, but I am blessed to have two today, two very big business connectors. And today we are really fortunate to have my colleagues and friends, Rob Saphow and Carolyn Andress with
New Jersey Association of Health Underwriters.
And the reason I am so excited to have them both with me, Carolyn, you were the immediate past president, and Rob, you are the president.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I have you both here today with me.
We make a good team.
You do.
We do.
You really do. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks
So
for having us.
we're going to talk insurance, and we have a lot to cover, and I love the organization. I love what you do, mainly because I'm also a life insurance agent, and I understand what you do, and I know how important it is. So I want to talk a little bit about brokers in general. You know, I'm a broker, you guys are brokers, there's brokers all over. So what makes this really important? You know, speak about being a broker and being part of NAHU.
Yeah. So, you know, Carol, it's interesting. As times change, things get complex, right?
Yeah.
And you know, business owners have I don't know if I'll say a difficult time, but a different time than in years past in handling employee benefits or commuter benefits or, you know, things of that nature. So it's extremely important for them to get somebody who's licensed, who's experienced, credentialed, to help them walk through that path and help them navigate the maze of employee benefits. Mm-hmm. It's extremely important for folks to choose a broker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said, and just to add to that, you know, years ago you would have brokers that might dabble in health insurance. Maybe they were a property and casualty agent primarily, or a financial advisor. But as things have grown more and more complex, you really need that expertise of someone that knows the health insurance industry in and out. And all of the complexities that Rob mentioned are a little challenging for you to absorb on the fly, if you will, right?
Right.
So I think that's really what a differentiator, I would say, is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all get phone bills, we all get, you know, papers that most of us can't even comprehend, right? So that's an individual, but then kick it up a few notches where you have an employer and the HR person's in charge of picking benefits.
Right.
And they're looking at a big ball of confusion. So what do you do, right? So how has that role of a broker really evolved? You know, I want to talk about that, you know?
Well, I would say from being in the business, if I can answer this from longer than you have, you know, certainly what a broker is expected to do and to be knowledgeable in is vastly different than years ago. You know, you're looking at compliance regulations and human resources, managing family leave, looking at technology, and how you're going to use those resources to track hours, per se, for mandates that came with the Affordable Care Act, or with family leave. So all of these things are examples of how much broader the scope is of skills that you need to have as being a broker, or positioned and have the right partner in place to guide you through all of it. It is a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for a business owner.
You know, Carolyn, would you agree that the transformation shifted from strictly delivering employee benefits to now the broker is acting almost as a business owner's attorney and accountant and HR person?
Professional.
Yes.
Like
You're
jack of all
professional
trades.
advisor. And I think it's so important when we look at health underwriters that we can provide those resources and tools and the education that a broker needs to achieve a higher level. So if I was a business owner, that probably would be the first thing that I would ask a broker that I'm meeting with. What credentials, what accreditations do you have? Are you an active member of your association? Because if you're not gaining that knowledge, then as a business owner, you're not the right person for me, you know.
Right, so so I am a business owner, and you two come knocking on my door, right? And What should I know? I'm a brand new business owner, and I'm pretty green. What should I know about brokers in general? What should I be looking for?
Right, and especially in the scenario that you just outlined, a brand new business owner, that brings a whole nother level of complexity to the benefits. So, what you should look for in your broker or your consultant is multiple things. First and foremost, are they licensed? I mean, that's just the basics, right?
Yeah, but who does that? Do they ever ask you, like, so by the way, Rob, Carolyn, you licensed?
No, they don't.
Right?
It's unfortunate
Right.
that they don't,
Right.
right? Because I think that they don't understand the knowledge that you need to have. They expect you just walk in the door, you know it. Everybody that has a license should know it. We couldn't sell, obviously, you couldn't replace the insurance with the insurance carrier if you didn't have a license to do so. But we're talking about some things that kind of go beyond that, right? You have to have more knowledge than what is just you can find on a computer screen to provide the appropriate guidance today.
Right, when you think about it though, if I broke my nose and I wanted to get a doctor and they had to fix my nose, I'd want to know if they were board certified. I want to know what their credentials are, but we don't see things the same, yet they could be really in line for a lawsuit, or all kinds of things could happen if they don't really do their due diligence. So what separates you really, being part of NAHU, versus I'm a broker and I don't belong to NAHU? Why?
We're going to have to give you an
Yeah.
application, Carol. We're just going to have to.
But by the end of this show, you're going to be a full active member.
I'm ready.
All right. So I truly feel there is a separation. Okay, a lot of the educational resources that the association provides, these aren't items that you could just go Google and find out. There's very complex, legal matters or reporting requirements. That if you're not perfect in the task that you're trying to complete within that realm, your client, the business owner, is at risk for severe financial penalties, all the way up until the point that could put them out of business. That's first and foremost. NAHU also provides compliance services to our registered brokers, to our members, and really what it is a team in Washington, and they have experts in every field, and they will get an answer for you. If you have a complex situation, they will find the answer.
So let's talk a little bit about that too, areas of expertise, right? So I have power of attorney of my 85-year-old aunt, my parents, and Medicare, all kinds of interesting long-term care that blew my mind that I didn't even know that I needed to know, the waiting period, and I had to go, figure this all out. So. Right. There's all kinds of age groups in the workplace right now with all different needs, right? You got right?
So it's different, and we have our members, I would say, have different areas of expertise. We have some members that specifically work just in the Medicare market, right? And that is their area of expertise, because to know that market in and out, that's very complex in itself, understanding all the options. There's those that specialize in individuals, small businesses. There's products right now in the small business market in New Jersey, fully insured products, and there's also level funded products. And then we talk about larger businesses that are offered self-funded options and reference-based pricing, and there's a lot of acronyms even associated with all of these products that to the business owner, it's like, woof, right over my head. I don't. Yeah,
I
right.
remember that one when I started. I'm like, BOP, what's a BOP?
Exactly.
So I think that some of our brokers dabble in a little bit of each, but they're still specializing in the health insurance, employee benefits sector. Others just decide on a specific area of focus. So I think that the most important thing is to make sure the person you're working with has that information.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about employers and some of the things that they're looking at or that they should be looking at. Okay, so we'll be right back. You don't want to leave, especially if you are an employer or even if you're not. I think you should come back. We'll be right back.
Your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Shelter dogs aren't broken. They've simply experienced more life. If they were human, we would call them wise. They would be the ones with tales to tell and stories to write, the ones dealt a bad hand who responded with courage. Do not pity a shelter dog. Adopt one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was filling out my NAHU application because I'm an insurance broker and I need to belong to this association. And you should too if you are a broker. So welcome back with my guest. Thank you for coming back and being with me again for the next 15 minutes. So I have Rob and Carolyn, and last segment we were talking a little bit about brokers and what you should look for, why it's important to have the right broker, right? Really navigator, so to speak. Advocate is even probably a better word, right?
Don't confuse us with a navigator.
When I said navigator, I said, no, I probably shouldn't say that. Advocate,
They don't have to be licensed.
That's right. And advocate is a much better word. But I really like the extended family to a business, that you are the trusted advisor, that the employer, every year says, you got to call Rob, you got to call Carolyn, and oftentimes it isn't about the dollars.
Right.
A lot of employers will say, are you going to beat that price, from last year, and about the money. But everything changes. Look, legislation changes every year. I know as a lobbyist, we talked about the Senate bill and
And even fighting that claim after you have your insurance in place, who's going to advocate for you and filing that appeal? Who's going to guide you to the best option when you're utilizing the plan? Sometimes you don't want to wait on an 800 number line with an insurance carrier, right? So our members are really, really skilled at providing that guidance.
Right. So as the former vice president at the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce and working with 3,000 employers at a time, I knew a little bit about what was important to them, and also about lobbying and making sure that we were watchdogs for the legislation that impacted our constituents, our membership. So I'm in a really good space to talk a little bit about, some of the risks that, the employers face, right? And when you're advocating, we're going to talk about some examples. And hopefully you're all listening out there, employers, because there's oftentimes it's sort of a little bubble that us lobbyists live in. We go out there, we testify, we get involved with the Senate, legislators, and then really nobody sees what goes on behind the scenes, right? But I'm sure that you let your members know this is what we're advocating for, and all the brokers are well aware of it, right?
Of course.
And the people you serve.
Of course.
So let's go to the first one. So ER exclusion. Who wants to go first?
That's, that when Congress looks at the employer exclusion, which prevents the money that the company is paying on behalf of the employee to be outside of taxable compensation. So that excludes that premium from being a taxable benefit to the employees. And the Congress looks at that as a money grab, right? Because there's a lot of money on the table, there, especially with the deficit, thinking, okay, maybe we can eliminate the employer exclusion, or there's talk of adjusting the employer exclusion. The problem with that is their philosophy is if we eliminate that, the money that the employer would have been providing to the employee in terms of that benefit if they tell them, go ahead, go out and get it on your own, because they're really eliminating the benefit of what 175 million Americans are getting their benefits through an employer-based system. Their theory is that they'll be giving them the money so they could go buy it on their own. Well, there's a problem with that, because number one, we all know employers are not going to be giving them all that money back, right? Secondly, there's economies of scale. As being part of an employer group, your rates and your risk is spread out amongst the population of your group, so you lose that advantage. And now you're asking an individual consumer to understand that, we were talking about how complicated this world of insurance is, right? To understand this. So I just don't see that if we're looking to provide more coverage to more Americans, I almost feel like we're taking a step in the wrong direction. Why are we taking away a system that's been working for so long?
Carolyn, it's interesting. I don't know if you recall, last year we were in Washington, D.C.,
Yes.
and we do that every year. We go on Capitol Hill and we talk to our legislatures, and I recommend everybody do that because they listen.
Yeah, I have.
Right?
Yeah, it's very important.
Absolutely.
We elect them.
Definitely, definitely. And while we were down in Washington, D.C., I forgot who the speaker was, but they cited a study that was conducted by one of the large consulting houses where they interviewed, I think it was 1,000 or 2,000 large employers. So the size of the companies were between 100 and 2,000 employees.
Okay.
Specific question was asked, if the employer exclusion were to go through, would you pass, if you were to eliminate benefits, would you pass on some of that savings to your employees? Overwhelmingly, they said they would not.
They would not.
Would not. So,
So it's just not
Wow.
viable. So that's one example. But there's also the Cadillac tax, right?
Right.
That's also, they look at that. That was a funding mechanism to pass the Affordable Care Act. Now the Cadillac tax keeps getting delayed, which is a great thing, right?
It is.
But it's very difficult when you're a long-term strategist or a business owner trying to decide. You can't all of a sudden change your benefits from here to here, because what it does is it puts a 40% excise tax on premiums that they feel are Cadillac or too rich of a plan. So you really can't plan. So that's number one, a problem for that when just these intermittent delays. The second issue, though, is it wasn't based upon the geography. So here in the Northeast, the cost of care is much higher than it is, let's say, in the Midwest. So you can't really say as a nation that this is the level, this is the most that you can be spending on your insurance, because it's a reflection of the cost of care. So, that in itself is difficult. There's bipartisan support overwhelmingly for a full repeal of the Cadillac tax. The only thing that we see that might cause a delay of that happening is if they try and tack on some other pieces of legislation to the bill. So if they tag on other things and before they bring it for a vote, and those things may not be appealing or may not be so received as well on a bipartisan basis, that's the only thing. But I really, really hope that doesn't happen, because everybody wants it, just to make sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a common legislative tactic, right? To slow down a bill to
Right.
and we're in the front lines advocating for those types of legislation, for the ones we agree, against for the ones we don't. But at the end of the day, we're well aware and fully in the loop. This is the information we're bringing to our clients, to our brokers.
Well, also by 2022, it's going to impact 50% of employers.
Yes, it
That's
will.
right.
Yeah.
That's half, right? 50,
And probably
did I get
more,
that right?
more so in this part of the country, right?
Right.
Because our rates are that much higher, yeah.
Right.
So
And a 40% tax on your second biggest line item, second biggest expense as a business owner.
Look, we surveyed businesses every year at the State Chamber,
Right.
and you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Healthcare
Yeah.
and talent,
Right.
talent retention, but they go hand in hand.
they do.
Absolutely.
You need to have an
Right.
attractive benefits package, especially in a tight labor market.
Yeah.
Right, right. So how about HT?
The hit tax.
Oh.
Oh, the hit tax. Do you want to tackle that one?
Sure. It was a funding mechanism for some government program act, right?
Yeah,
And,
for the Affordable Care Act.
for the
right?
Affordable Care Act, and it was in for a few years. It's supposed to be basically a percentage of the market share of an insurer. It comes out to about 2 to 3%, and it's been postponed or held off for a certain amount of time. The talk is having it included back in.
2020, right?
Right.
Yeah, next
right.
year, so we're hoping.
An extra 2 to 3% right to the consumer.
Not bad, right?
And it's going to come right to the premium, right? They're going to put the tax on the insurer, so it's going to be given to the employer, going to go down to the employees, so it all comes full circle, right?
One way or another, everything is passed down to the employee. So that's why it's so important for us to pay attention to these things.
Right, employees too.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I can't tell you how many times I go to the State House and there's, all these issues up for grabs
Right.
and empty crickets, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And all of these issues impact us tremendously, especially with all the generations, that are all in one little pot,
Right.
in our workplace.
And I think just talking about these issues too, when we were getting back to what we said earlier about finding out if your broker is a part of this association, well, the brokers in this association are fighting this fight for you.
Right.
So wouldn't you want a broker that's on the front line? I would.
Right.
These is affecting you as an employer. So.
Right, and that they understand.
Right.
Right. We're in Washington. We're in Trenton. We're talking to the legislators.
And I know what that's like.
Yes.
Yeah,
I do, yeah.
It's an experience.
It is, but boy, it makes you, more educated, more equipped, with ammunition to really say to your clients, I really understand this.
Right.
And a lot of the legislators, let's face it, there's so many issues coming across their desk. We have to educate them as well and be
Absolutely.
their resource. So
Yes.
oftentimes they come back to us and say, what do you think about this, or what are your thoughts on that? So we can really give them, it sounds good, but let me tell you what the ramifications are of
Yeah.
it. And that really resonates with them.
Yeah, it does, that you're a resource for them as well,
Right,
because they
right.
really rely on you. Look, they're working on other issues.
Yeah.
It's not just healthcare. But Medicare for all?
Yeah.
Medicare for all.
I know. If you watch the Democratic debates, obviously, it's a big hot button issue in the next
Sure.
presidential election. Medicare for all is really Medicare for none, because the system can't even sustain who we have, and then you have more baby boomers entering Medicare as they get older. So it's very challenging, especially because the private market is also paying a lot higher reimbursement than Medicare is. So from a provider perspective, it's also challenging because there's an offset sometimes of the private payers versus Medicare. Now, if you have everybody Medicare for all, I don't even know how that system's going to work, and probably many rural hospitals will close because they just can't afford to remain in business because the reimbursements they don't have enough private payers coming in.
Yeah.
So they're struggling as it is. There's been a lot of consolidation in the market. And consolidation, I'm a believer that competition is good, right? It's a good thing to drive down costs. But the more that we have more regulation, and it makes it more difficult to be profitable when you're competing against a large hospital system, the more consolidation we'll see, and then costs go up, right? Because there's no competition driving that cost down.
Yeah, it's interesting, Carolyn. I just piggybacking off something you just said that we don't know what'll happen. But if you really think about it, if you look at the other countries who have universal health care or Medicare version of health care, all the experts who chime in on this topic have not identified a single country that's got it right. They have not found the secret sauce. You have to be able to solve for three things: cost, quality, and access.
Yeah.
And a lot of countries have a solution for one or two. There's no country that has a solution for all three.
All that benchmarking and no results.
Right.
Right.
Now, if you look at some of the other countries that have universal health care, a lot of countries over in Europe, there's delays in getting proper care, appropriate care, sometimes life-saving care.
Yeah.
If you look at Canada, who's supposed to have a very good universal health care system, well, they are heavily taxed on their income to pay for that, and they have to buy supplemental health insurance policies to go see the doctor, to go get their surgeries.
All those little missing things, right?
Yeah,
Right.
little missing things. I mean, you talk about the size of a population, right, of some of these countries versus our population in
Right.
the United States, vastly different. So we want to protect Medicare for those that are eligible for it and have it now today. I think that's the most important thing, and we do not support, and we know it's not the solution. But it's a good political talking point, I guess, for those running for president right now.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and we know how that goes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No surprise billing, right? Surprise
It's a
billing.
very hot topic.
Yeah, I think with surprise billing, you know, if you go to an emergency room you have an emergency and you don't know who's treating you, you don't know who the emergency room technician is, you don't know who the anesthesiologist, the radiologist, the pathologist, all of those providers that wind up being out of your network per se, and you get this surprise bill. It is very difficult for the consumer. So one of the ideas is to have an arbitration where it's basically just shifting deck chairs on the Titanic. Who's paying for it? This is the cost, right?
I love that analogy.
But we really think that some national benchmarking would make more sense based upon geography, because you know, if you're just shifting the cost, even though the consumer might feel like, okay, I've been made whole, well, when the insurance carrier pays a higher cost, higher than usual on that claim, higher than what they would have paid in network, much, much higher in most instances, then that affects the premium because it affects the medical loss ratio, as I know you know.
Right.
And then the consumer pays for it anyway.
Right.
So we think benchmarking rather than arbitration really is the most effective solution for that.
I mean, Carol, you're paying for it in the front end or the back end.
Right, but you're going to pay
Right.
for
You're
it.
gonna
right?
pay.
There's no free anything.
You're
is
going to
there?
pay. I haven't found it.
Yeah, no. So, any parting message? We have to break up. We had to break up, us
Oh,
guys.
that's so sad.
I know, but you'll come back, right?
Absolutely.
If you'll
Yeah,
have
we'll
us,
talk about more issues
Yeah,
next time.
Definitely,
yeah, because I know we
definitely.
have more. and-
Absolutely. There's more
there's
in.
an endless amount.
And I'm going to finish my application and join. So,
Yes.
you know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So what's the parting message?
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Well, so, you know, just like what we talked about today, it is very important to have a health insurance broker or an insurance broker, and more importantly, to ensure that you're using a NAHU broker, because they do have the expertise, the training, and the resources to get you the answers you want to get. So if you're a broker who's not a member, you should join. And if you're a business owner, you should ensure that your broker is a NAHU member.
And actually, they can go on our website, right, to find an agent. So
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Let everybody know your website.
Yeah.
In this camera.
If you go to nj8hu.org and click on Find an Agent, which is right on top, a button right on top of the screen, you'll be able to find a credentialed NAHU broker in your area with an expertise that you are looking for.
njaahu.org.
I joined, so I'm good.
You're
you know?
good, all right.
Yeah, I want
Our job
everybody to
is
find
done.
me.
Now we got to
Rob?
get you involved.
I know.
Rob, our job is done.
Yes.
Hey, I'm so happy that you both were here, because I'll tell you, it really is eye-opening. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
Yep.
And healthcare is really, really important,
And really-
especially for employers. We've commented, right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
important and complex,
Yeah.
and there's people out there to help.
Well, they know where to find you now.
That's right.
Absolutely.
All right. So come back and see me again, all right?
You got
We
it.
will.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you. And thanks to all of you for joining me every Friday right here on Business Connections. You never know. Your next big connection could be sitting right next to me. And this one is an important one, so make sure you follow up. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.